Welcome back to Free Tendies Fantasy. This is the front office episode for week 3 of the NFL season, and I'm here with Yanni. How's it going, man?
What's up, dude?
Before we get started on our free agents and our buys and sells, let's just do a quick little recap of the Monday night games. I went ahead and watched the Saints and Panthers. It was very boring, disgusting football. The Panthers' offense looks out of sorts. The Saints' defense is okay. The Saints' offense, they could move the ball, but are not great at scoring. And the Panthers' defense is all right. So, I mean, it was pretty much out of hand. The Panthers got a last second touchdown and 2 point conversion in garbage time. But if you didn't watch this game, you didn't really miss much. It's two not great teams on Monday night. I hate to see it.
Yeah, the other game wasn't. I mean, it actually was entertaining in the sense that it was a really hard hitting rivalry game, but the football was really sloppy. Um, Deshaun does not look good at all. If I were a Browns fan, I would be a little bit panicked. I'm kind of panicked about their pass catchers that I have shares of. It was all right. It's a good win. I mean, the Steelers needed it. Um, yeah, you'd have to be uncomfortable if you're a Browns fan with that level of football, though. I don't think that's where you expected the team to be at a year into the Deshaun Watson experiment.
Now, I would say it's early returns right now, but 2 weeks into the season, we've seen this Browns team dog walk the Bengals, and then they lost to the Steelers. So I think honestly, it speaks more to the current state of the Bengals than the Browns being the '86 Bears. Um, but I mean that's what they play the games for. Maybe Deshaun Watson figures it out. That's been one of my calls though. That Deshaun Watson is cooked, but you know we'll see. All right, so here are waiver wire pickups for the week. The first one is Jerome Ford. Obviously, Nick Chubb's knee exploded in a very, very gruesome way. If you watch the game, I mean, that's tough. If you want to see the clip, I would say check Twitter. You could probably find it. That being said, Jerome Ford is looking to be the lead back in Cleveland now for the time being. Tonight, he had 16 carries for 105 yards rushing, and then he also got is that targets or receptions?
Targets, receptions, yards.
Okay, and then you got 4 targets for 3 receptions and 25 yards and a touchdown, 22.6 points. I think this is probably going to be the pickup of the week. He's going to be last week's Puka Nakua. If you're playing in a Fab League, if you want him, I'd probably spend on him, to be honest with you. But, the Browns have a pretty good rush offense. They've always been pretty consistently good at running the ball, and regardless of the fact that he doesn't have much name value, he's definitely worth a spot on your roster, especially if you've had injuries to Chubb or Saquon Barkley, J.K. Dobbins, those type of rosters that would really be looking for a guy like him. The next one we got is Zach Ertz. He is a fossil. I'm surprised he is still football relevant and fantasy relevant. But over the season, he's had 18 targets in 2 games, which I don't know why you're throwing the ball to Zach Ertz that much, but they are. For 12 catches and 77 receiving yards, he's at like 7 points a game, which in a position like tight end where it's hard to find anybody worth starting, you got to give him a look. If the Cardinals are going to be throwing a bunch of short stuff and taking the easy pass a lot of the times, like I can see Zach Ertz just racking up more and more targets and catches. It's not going to be sexy, but it's definitely something you could do. Next, we have basically the entire Texans passing offense that isn't already rostered. Nico Collins is pretty heavily rostered, so we're throwing in C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell, and Bobby Trees. They've all had, they've all played above their skis so far. Stroud is looking like a competent NFL quarterback. Tank Dell, Rob Woods, and Nico Collins have all been recipients of the high passing volume. The Texans have been getting down very early in games, abandoning the run and being forced to pass, and Stroud seems up to the task so far. So if there's going to be a lot of garbage time targets going around, then I think they're worth a shout. Especially like for a lower end roster piece that you can cut without really being too sad about it. And I think Josh Reynolds is yours, Yanni.
Yeah, man. And yeah, just about the Texans, they're going to be in so many negative game scripts. And also, those are half PPR points per game that are being shown. In full PPR, both Woods and Dell have been like emergency startable. I mean, 10.8 half PPR, 9.5 half PPR. It's pretty good. Josh Reynolds is one that I saw on some lists last week, and I think he needs to be continuing on lists this week. It looked like they were reinforcing Amon-Ra's foot with what appears to be a turf toe injury. I'm not sure if he went back in after that or not. I just saw the video of the reinforcement of it that made me believe it was a turf toe. It might be a midfoot sprain, whatever. There's all sorts of things it could be that they would put that in there. But the bottom line is Amon-Ra got hurt. That wide receiver core is pretty thin, and he's been getting really good run early in the season. 13 targets, 9 receptions, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, 15.6 half PPR points per game. I certainly think with the injuries that are going on to bigger name guys, you could do a lot worse than adding him on your roster, even if it's just for a few weeks. I wouldn't go blow a bunch of fab on him, but I think he's probably startable. The Lions are a pretty prolific passing offense. It's not the worst thing to have pieces of them. They just lost Montgomery. One would assume they're going to pass more now. So I thought he was worth adding. The next one is sort of just general handcuffs. This is sort of the time of the year where you want to pick apart handcuffs. You want to look at who's getting a lot of use, who's getting older. Spears keeps getting consistent touches. He has 11 carries for 76 yards, 6 targets, 3 receptions, 7 yards. That's really efficient, man. Almost 7 yards a touch in that offense. There are handcuffs and then there are premium handcuffs. He's a premium handcuff. He looks like he would push into the RB1 tier if Henry were to miss time. So I think he's someone who probably should be rostered if you have the space. Chandler is speculative. Madison has not looked very good with his touches. I see Chandler again popping up on lists everywhere this week. I guess it's kind of a chalk thing to mention, but just not terribly complex calculus you're doing here. You're assuming that maybe they're going to give someone else a shot. If Madison continues to look so inefficient, he may be worth an ad. Depends on the depth of your roster in your league. And then Breida, obviously, no Saquon 2 to 3 weeks. If they don't bring someone in, one would assume Breida's going to get good touches. They're going to be trailing against the Niners a lot this week. They're going to be trailing a lot in general. Might get dump offs. He's a pretty good receiver out of the backfield. And then one last one that I'm noticing that Hunt and Lenny were getting added a ton this week, tonight, under the assumption that the Browns might bring one of them in. Probably more logical to assume they bring in Hunt over Leonard Fournette because of his familiarity with the system and the coaching staff. If they do bring one in, not the worst ads. It really depends who you're dropping for him. I think you probably want to be a little bit careful. Ted, would you rather have Roschon Johnson or Kareem Hunt rostered right now?
Roschon Johnson. I think if Kareem Hunt gets signed, he's coming off the street and he's going to be a backup to Jerome Ford, who was the backup. I don't see Kareem Hunt getting the type of work he did last year. I think that if anything, he would be like a Latavius Murray type signing at this point. I like his talent, but I don't see him getting utilized. So it's Roschon by default.
What about Damian Harris or Kareem Hunt?
Damian Harris gets all the goal line for the Bills. Just fall in.
Yeah, so that's like about the tier. Elijah Mitchell or Kareem Hunt?
Elijah Mitchell, he's a better handcuff.
Jalen Warren or Kareem Hunt?
There I'd go Kareem Hunt probably. You guys saw the Steelers rushing offense. It's not great. The way Jalen Warren eats is just through dump offs, and that's just my own personal thing. I prefer my running back to not be counting on those. It's like rostering J.D. McKissick, like you can, but it's not my preferred way of playing.
Fair enough. I just look, when you see someone getting added 20 or 30,000 times, those are probably the types of decisions people are making. Yeah. I saw like Allen Lazard was a popular late round pick. You probably want to roster Kareem Hunt over Allen Lazard. Stuff like that. It should use your discretion. It depends who you're holding on to and who you have. A second defense, I would rather roster Kareem Hunt over a second defense. So,
yeah. All right, this is our buy low section. I know we just talked about Alexander Madison, but I think he's a good buy low right now. He's looked.
It's a point of contention between the two of us, Alexander Madison.
Yeah, well, hear me out on this one. I'm not under the illusion Alexander Madison is great at football or anything, but what I do know is that he's a 3-down running back in an offense that's pretty good. They're definitely a pass-happy offense, but it's a better offense than it's a top half of the league offense, and he has an extremely soft schedule coming up the next month. His next 4 games are he plays the Chargers next week, who are a bottom 2 run defense. Then I think he plays the Packers. I forgot who the third game is, and then he gets the Bears his 4th week. So the next month of Alexander Madison, I think if he's going to do it, he's going to do it there. I wouldn't trade anything premium for Alexander Madison by any means, but if you can make kind of an offer to a manager who's just sick of seeing him fumble and look terrible, you might be able to get like at least a solid month of production. And at least right now he's a featured back in a solid offense, which for me is good enough. I mean, again, use your discretion, but especially with all these running backs going down, the pickings are getting slim, and getting a bell cow, if you want to call him that, is something that is pretty valuable in my opinion. So yeah, I think he's worth a buy low.
Yeah, the next few pretty basic idea here, right? You're shooting for big name value, big upside, proven history of production, and a poor start. There are unfortunately several big names that fit that mold. I wish there weren't so many, but that's just the way it is. I certainly did not see like Devonte Adams with Jimmy Garoppolo outscoring AJ Brown or Jamar Chase. That's how it started. But this one first, and on Jimmy's team is Josh Jacobs. He has 28 carries for 45 yards. He has 9 targets, 7 receptions, 74 yards. He's only averaged 7.75 points per game. It's pretty poor. But honestly, again, the opportunity has been there. You're talking about someone who's getting like 16, 17 chances a game, 18, 19 chances a game. If you're getting that level of opportunity, you have a competent offensive coordinator, which he does. It's kind of hard, I guess. You're looking at last year and you're trying to figure out what's going on this year. And the question is Jimmy that big of a downgrade over Carr that Jacobs is worth 5 or 10 points less per game? I personally don't think so. I think there's probably been some growing pains in the offense going against two pretty stout defenses. They went against the Bills and the Broncos. Those are by no means pushover defenses. The Broncos allowed like 15 points per game last year. The Bills beat the hell out of them. Obviously, Jacobs wasn't getting a ton of run in that game, and the Bills are going to embarrass a lot of offenses this year. So you're just sort of prognosticating a little bit that he's had bad matchups, not bad game scripts in Bronco, but just bad matchups, tough games, whatever it may be, and then he'll bounce back around. I would see what people are willing to do. See if someone's panicking. Maybe someone who has Jacobs also has like Cooper Kupp or JT and they can't afford more losses. You might be able to buy him cheap. AJ Brown and Jamar Chase both fall into the same category, more or less, averaging 8.15 and 6.1 half point PPR points per game, respectively. That's really, really bad for where you drafted these guys. I saw AJ Brown creep into the first round of some drafts. He was usually going at the 1-2 turn. I saw Jamar Chase was going top 3. I have 2 shares of Chase. I have 2 shares of AJ Brown. It's been stressful owning them. It's not great. But you believe in the talent, you believe in the offenses, you believe they'll come around. And the thing to remember about Chase, probably is going to have a down week this week with Burrow hurt and then playing the Rams. So a great buy low opportunity next week. But poke around this week, man. People start to get desperate. If it's a 4 playoff team, 12-team league, and they're already down 0-2, and maybe they already have other injured guys or they have other guys not performing, people get a little jittery. You should see what people will trade him for. This week, I was seeing Mike Evans as the centerpiece of trades for those guys. If you could take something you got in the 7th, 8th round and you can swap it for like players that were going top 5, top 10, top 15, and players that we're pretty sure did not forget how to play football. I don't think that Jalen Hurts is going to stop targeting AJ Brown this year. It's now the emergence of Smith. There's a little bit of concern there, and then Burrow's health. There's a little bit of concern with the Bengals. It's certainly not a risk-free move, but it's a move that has so much upside and so much good to it that I think it's one that you probably want to look at. Feel around, see what the price is, see how panicked the owner is.
Yeah, all 3 of those guys.
Let you say.
What was that?
I'll let you hit Zay. Anything to add to those guys?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I got something for all 3 of them actually. Josh Jacobs, AJ Brown, and Jamar Chase are all premium talents. Like, there's no doubt about that. And when you're playing fantasy and trying to make moves and buy low, you're trying to buy like league winners. You know what I mean? Like, so this is why they're on our list. For Josh Jacobs, I thought it's important to note that he did struggle against the Broncos rushing offense, who just gave up the number one score to a running back in week 2. Brian Robinson cooked them, but I mean, I'm still not panicking. Like, it is what it is. I think that the Raiders should get back to running the ball better. Or at least I don't see them abandoning the run or anybody else getting involved. AJ Brown, I would say historically speaking, like, this is what he is, and he's a 1A to a 1B in an offense that will just have one guy go off randomly. And sometimes when that one guy goes off, the other guy doesn't eat. So For AJ Brown, I'm not even concerned at all. I just think that this is the player profile of him. He'll have explosion games. He'll have weeks where he gets you 35, and then he'll have other weeks where Devontae Smith goes off. I would just say that's part of rostering AJ Brown. So maybe you can take advantage of that. And then Jamar Chase, yeah, it's just a matter of whenever Burrow gets it going. This week was concerning too. I'm not gonna lie. He still doesn't look great, but he looked better than he did against the Browns. So hopefully, sometime soon he starts to look like himself. But anyways, on to Zay Flowers. This one is entirely a bet on the talent. Right now, Zay Flowers is being rotated into the offense. I believe last week he played 51 or 52 of 70 total snaps. So he's still getting rotated in for guys like Devin Duvernay. But whenever he touches the ball, he's clearly the most explosive player on the offense. He had a win over the top of the Bengals corner for like 60 yards, and then they designed two touches to try and get him in the end zone afterwards, but he was too tired, and they gave it to I think they gave it to like Justice Hill or Gus Edwards or something. But yeah, this bet is basically that he becomes the clear number one and a full time guy in that offense, and if he does, then you could be cooking. Like he would be a primary target with Mark Andrews, and if Lamar is able to throw the ball and throw it well, then he's going to be an explosive and good guy to get on your team. So, and right now, like I don't know, he's had 11 points per game, so he's still putting up numbers. But you could potentially put together an offer, maybe to a team that's rostering him that has holes elsewhere. It would just give you a huge upside play, and I don't think you'd have to give up a ton to get him right now. Maybe it depends on how much the owner watches the Ravens. I think because if you watch the Ravens, you can see he moves different and he's just totally different. So
He's their best receiver. He's for sure the best receiver on their roster.
you're fading Odell. What about Odell, dude? 32-year-old Odell.
Yeah. Yes, I'm fading him.
All right, let's get into our sell highs. The first two are me. Old Russ, he cooked on Sunday. He got the Hail Mary and at the end of the game, and I believe he had 33 points as a quarterback. Right now, he is the number three scoring fantasy quarterback, and he's still not good. In case you guys haven't watched him, like don't be fooled by the fantasy numbers. Don't be fooled by the garbage time. He's still not good. He still doesn't look good. He's missing a lot of throws. He looks incapable of running Sean Payton's offense the way he wants to. I would unload him. There's some quarterback needy team that isn't really watching the games and just sees that he's a very high scorer. Maybe you can pawn him off onto somebody else and get something decent for him. You never know. And then old Baker Mayfield. I think I said last week he was going to throw for 4 touchdowns against the Bears defense. He was 3 short of that, but he still threw for over 300 yards. So far this season, he's looked pretty good. He lit up the Vikings, and he had another good day against the Bears. Putting him on the list, like there's a lot of people who are encouraged right now about him. I would say get out though before it's too late. I think that the longer that the season goes on, the more we're gonna regress back to old Baker. So, I mean, putting him here, if you're like in a super flex league and like you just absolutely need to roster him, fair enough. But yeah, I wouldn't count on his production being sticky. So that's why he's on the sell high. I don't expect you getting a haul for Baker Mayfield just because of the last 2 years, but you might be able to get something for him. Use your discretion.
Yeah, the next one is related to Baker Mayfield, and that's Mike Evans. A lot of the opinion on the Buccaneers receivers going into the season was kind of split. It was either they were complete fades because Baker Mayfield was going to tank the offense, they weren't going to get the volume they were getting with Tom Brady, or they were buys at ADP. Some people felt like at ADP all the risk that was in them was baked into the price and they were worth the roll. I was one of the latter. But as these guys are starting to hit, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin has not really hit, but Mike Evans has been a 20.85 point per game guy. That is ridiculous. That is a high end wide receiver one. And again, I'm seeing trades where it's like Jamar Chase, AJ Brown for Mike Evans. That's a really, really good value proposition to me. If you can attach Mike Evans to like one of your lower end running back threes, and you can get someone like a Josh Jacobs, even someone like an ETN, like if you can bump up a roster spot like that, it's something you kind of have to look at. Right now, I'm looking at who am I packaging with. I'm looking at packaging him with guys like Zay Flowers and Mike Evans, and I'm trying to see who I can get. See if I can get one of a Jamar Chase or an AJ Brown. I'm trying to take him and put him with Swift and see if I can pick off a top 5 running back from someone's roster. Um, See if someone gets antsy. Who knows? For the next two, it's the same idea. These guys are both currently top 5 in terms of points, running backs, and half PPR. And both of them don't feel like they should be there for different reasons. And that's Brian Robinson Jr. and Mostert. Mostert's pretty straightforward. The man always gets injured. Jeff Wilson Jr. is coming back. Their offense has been exploding these first few weeks, even in the rush game, which is surprising. It does not feel sustainable. I would be trying to trade him. If you can market him as like a high-end RB2, low-end RB1, even though he's been a top 5 running back, I would be doing that. I would be seeing what the market thinks of him. See what someone who maybe just had a Chubb injured, who maybe lost to Dobbins this year, is willing to give up for him. And Brian Robinson Jr., same thing, although I would be more cautious here. It does not feel authentic, meaning he does not feel like a quarterback, and they don't feel like an offense that should, or a running back, and they don't feel like an offense that should be sustaining a 20.5 point per game running back. But it's really weird. He gets the level of volume he keeps getting. Their defense keeps him in games, which means a lot of rushing attempts. He's getting just fed. But that type of production, who knows what you can get for him? It's worth your time to poke around. It is worth your time to poke around. Again, with running back injuries already this year, with some of those volume-based RB2s in the dead zone busting, the people are going to be thirsty for a viable running back. So that's why I would also just say be careful when you're selling and make sure you're getting adequate value. But those are two guys that you're going to want to look at selling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think between Robinson and Mostert, I would definitely prefer to deal Mostert, just because Brian Robinson is just he has a stranglehold on that running game. I don't know what him and Ron Rivera got going on, but like Ron loves him, even though he might not even be the most talented running back on their roster. He's Ron is just committed to giving Brian Robinson all the work, and Mostert I could see getting put into a gross kind of timeshare when Jeff Wilson comes back. I'm not like 100% sold that he's like their guy so much in Miami versus Brian Robinson. For whatever reason, they love him. So, I mean, I don't think he's very talented, but the opportunity's there, right?
I don't get it. I actually couldn't tell you why. I was so upset that I had to pick him in the draft that I have him in. It just felt like there was no one at value there. There was a run at running backs. I'll take him. This was not someone who I came into the year targeting. It wasn't someone that I heard very much buzz for. Like no one was like, it was like if you're going 0 RB, this guy's probably someone you can shove in your roster.
This might be out of pocket to say, but I think it's because he got shot. And Ron is like, I feel that, brother. Like, what an inspiring story. Like, I feel like it's more about that than like what is actually the best for his football team. But I also hate Ron Rivera, so take what I say with a grain of salt.
The Ron Rivera medical issue edge.
Actually,
Maybe.
okay, this is perfect. Please comment down in the comments if you want me and Yanni to put together a list of like coaches we want fired. I think we can do a top 5 and it would be very funny because there's a lot of coaches in this league that we definitely want to see gone. So yeah, like the video and like let us know in the comments if you want to see us do that because I will do that video. It'll be so fun to just talk about coaches I don't like.
Just spewing venom at multimillionaires who have done more with their lives than we'll ever do. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Well,
it's one of my favorite things to do.
You know what? I'm not a head coach. I haven't done as much as Ron Rivera in my life, but I wouldn't be starting Brian Robinson if I'm trying to win football games. Okay.
No.
Anyways, we got a couple more sell highs. DeAndre Swift. Obviously, he looked incredible against the Vikings on Thursday. He looked exactly like the player that I've always thought he could be if he actually gets featured. He carried the ball 29 times, which is more than he's ever carried it like in a game before. He's only eclipsed 20 carries 5 times ever in his career, and then he also had 5 targets out of the backfield too. Because Kenneth Gainwell was out, he got the entire thing. I think it's safe to say about the Eagles' backfield now that Rashad Penny is not a factor and Boston Scott is change of pace. So to me, it's a 2-horse race now between DeAndre Swift and Kenny Gainwell. But I also don't know if DeAndre Swift or Kenny Gainwell are going to take the lead and be a lead back. So if you can take DeAndre Swift and sell him as an explosive lead back in one of the league's best offenses, you might be able to get something pretty crazy for him. So that's why we have him here. Even though, gun to my head, I have to pick one running back in the Eagles' backfield to like want on my fantasy team, it's definitely Swift. But I'm not sold that he'll get the opportunity, right? Because like they came into the season like they've seen an entire offseason of DeAndre Swift, and they went out there week one and featured Kenny Gainwell. I mean, maybe Sirianni knows something I don't know, but I think Swift looks pretty good. So other
Well,
managers might feel the same way too.
there's been two schools of thought that I've seen on it from like Reddit or from fantasy discords. I've seen some debate about it. The question is whether or not they gave Gainwell a run because he was more familiar with the system, and then Gainwell going out forced him to throw Swift in, and but they always wanted to feature Swift. That's kind of your own judgment, what you think on that. To me, Swift is clearly the more talented back, and he exploded when he was given the opportunities. Again, this is a sell high that's not so much like you're off this player, he's not doing well. Dude, if you got my line for Swift was right around pick 90. If he was there pick 90 to 100, I would take my shot on him. If you got Swift around pick 90 or 100, you're thrilled to get that level of production the first 2 weeks. But that also means that you might be able to pair him with someone and get a giant roster upgrade early, and someone that's not quite as risky, that's not quite as injury prone, that's not in a four-way backfield, that doesn't have a running quarterback. There are factors that are mitigating towards Swift's upside. So again, it's really just about what can you get in return. Be picky when you're selling someone like that. He's got a lot of hype behind him. He's like one of the best stories this week in the NFL was him getting 30 touches. It's ridiculous. But, you know, gauge interest, see what he's worth on the market.
Yeah. Rashad White
Oh,
is next.
I love White. I love White. We go back and forth, man, but I think you're probably right.
Listen, this is Rashad White is on this list. It's all the same theory that I've been talking about with Baker and with Mike Evans, and for me, Chris Godwin too. I would probably sell Chris Godwin over Evans, but that's an entirely different story. But the Buccaneers got to play the Vikings and the Bears the first 2 weeks of their season. That is about as good of matchups as you could possibly have as an offense. In week one, Rashad White did not look good against the Vikings at all. Did not look good at all. I don't have the line in front of me, but I think he scored like 4 points or something. The Buccaneers historically over the past, ever since Tom Brady got there, really, they're a team that likes to try and throw the ball, and they're a team that has been really ineffective running the ball. Rashad White is not a transcendent talent by any means, and I think that as they start getting into the more serious defenses on their schedule, all of the Buccaneers players are going to take a massive, massive fantasy hit, or a massive hit to their production and fantasy relevance. So that's why Rashad White is on here. He's coming off. How many points did he have last game? Do you have it?
Well, he's averaging 12.3, but he had about 18 last week. 18, 19.
18. I think it's very likely 18 is his max all year. I don't see him getting higher than 18 in any scenario. So I mean, I don't know. Like again, it depends on your roster. I think he's a okay enough like bench piece, or I guess you could flex him in a pinch, but I would expect it to not get any better from here. And yeah, I mean the Bears defense is going to be one of our favorite defenses to see for fantasy going forward. They proved it again last week. They let the Jordan Love cut them up. They let the Packers just destroy them. I think that they are very, very bad on both sides of the ball. And it's going to be a defense that when you see your fantasy players play them, you're going to be like, oh, nice. So I'm betting on that Bears defense sucking more than the talent of Rashad White. And then,
All right.
yeah.
Aaron Jones was the RB1 overall after he played him, So certainly they make players look good.
Yeah. It's just not their own, right? Poor Bears. Anyways, next on the list is Dameon Pierce. This is a guy that I was extremely excited about during the offseason. He, to me, looked like one of the only extremely talented three down backs that existed in fantasy football. So I drafted him in a lot of places. I drafted him a lot this offseason, and I am already taking my L on that. To me, it's not so much an issue with his talent. I think he's a perfectly fine player. I think he's a good talent. The issue is that the Texans are just not good at football. They're not good at competing or being in close games. And the Texans' run blocking has been very bad. In week two, Dameon Pierce rushed for 32 yards, and 31 of those yards were after contact. So he is getting constantly touched and abused behind the line of scrimmage. and he has one of like the worst possible defenses in the fantasy playoffs. He plays the Titans twice, then I forgot who else, but it's definitely the Titans
Jets,
twice. Oh, Titans, Jets, and
Jets, Titans.
Jets, Titans. So that's 3 weeks right there. Like he's gonna be. Those are all gonna be tough games that I think he struggles to get it going on the ground in. And on top of that, CJ Stroud looks good. We had CJ Stroud and the Texans passing options in our buy list. So it seems to me like this Texans team has just become a garbage time passing team to me. So I am much more keen on like the little side weapons like Bobby Trees. Like it, it's been 2 weeks in a row now. Robert Woods has outscored Damian Pierce in fantasy, and I don't see game flow changing for the Texans anytime soon. There are things to be encouraged about on that team. I think D'Amico Ryans is a great coach. I think that they're going to be better eventually, but man, in terms of like what your immediate fantasy return is this season, I just don't see it where he was drafted. I would. This is less of a sell high and sell while you can, to me, because I don't. What is it? He's at 5 points per game right now. Like honestly, I don't see that getting much better. And like, if you can just swap him out instead of have him be on your bench, that's at least some value, right? Like I actually made a trade in one of my leagues. I got Alexander Madison for Damian Pierce, and I was fine with that. I obviously Damian Pierce to me is the much more talented player, but it's just a question of like, what are you going to get from me in terms of fantasy points this week and in the immediate future? And yeah, I just don't see it for him. It sucks, but sometimes you just got to take your L and walk away. Yanni, do you
Well,
like vehemently disagree with this? I know you're like a big Damian Pierce guy.
no, I mean you also upgraded another roster spot in that trade, so like, you know, it was more than just that. But like I understood that trade. Um, no, again, it's more just heartbreaking because I really like the guy. You know, I think he's an animal, but he needs 20. You know, we all heard that statistic this year about the vast difference between his fantasy output when he got 20 or more touches or didn't. And so then you start looking at this season and like 5 injured O linemen. It's Stroud's passing. I think he had like 44 attempts in his last game. Um, and then defense that isn't great. You know, they keep getting scored on. So it's hard to imagine his route to 20 touches a game. And I think that's kind of the issue. To me, I would either. The thing about selling now is he's still a fourth round pick. You can sell him if you're trying to market him to people as he was I saw him go in like the third round in some drafts. Some drafts I was in like big money leagues, he was going between 35 and 40. So, you know, he was going before Brees Hall, Ken Walker, uh, Keenan Allen, you know. So I, again, you kind of have to feel it out. You kind of have to see what's going on. If you're selling him now, you need to market him as he's a fourth round pick. He was an RB2 in pick value. If you're not comfortable selling him now, you're going to hold out, wait till the O line gets healthy, wait for a week or two, ship him out. Especially with that playoff schedule, I do not see him being a viable fantasy asset in the playoffs. And in fact, I would go as far as to say if you're starting him as your RB2 in the playoffs, you probably are going to lose.
All right, that's gonna do it for us. If you made it through the whole video, thank you. This is not my best outing, but you know what? We're out here uploading videos every day, and that's what counts. Consistency, going for that YouTube algorithm. But yeah, please like, subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you want us to do like our top 5 coaches we want fired, and if we get, let's put a number on it. If we get 5 people in the comments that say they want to see that episode, we'll do it. One for every coach that I hate. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll trash NFL coaches, definitely.
yeah, it's fun stuff. But yeah, that's gonna do it for us, and see you next time.
Thanks, guys.